Maya Harper stepped out of the black sedan, her polished heels clicking softly against the pavement. She inhaled deeply, taking in the sight of the Crestmore Hotel, a towering symbol of old-world luxury. The grand columns, the marble facade, the valet scurrying to open car doors for wealthy guests, it all screamed exclusivity. Maya had seen it before, experienced the whispers of prejudice behind the velvet ropes of high society, but not today. Today, she was here as a guest. She had paid for this experience like anyone else, and she intended to enjoy it. Beside her, Tara Evans, her assistant and trusted confidant, adjusted her glasses while juggling luggage and paperwork. "I confirmed the reservation twice just to be sure," Tara said, offering a small, nervous smile. "We're all set." Maya glanced at Tara, appreciating her thoroughness. Tara had been with her since the early days when they were building the real estate empire from the ground up. Now here they were, wealthy, successful, and at the top of their game. Still, there were spaces that felt resistant to her presence, but Maya had never let that stop her. "I trust you," Maya replied with a wink. "Let's go." Inside, the lobby of the Crestmore was an elegant affair. White marble floors gleamed under enormous crystal chandeliers, and guests in tailored suits and designer dresses sipped champagne as they checked in. The opulence felt almost exaggerated, like a painting of wealth too refined for modern times. Maya admired the atmosphere, even though something about it felt a little too curated, too polished. They approached the front desk where a young receptionist with perfect posture and a plastered smile awaited them. "Good afternoon, welcome to the Crestmore Hotel," she said, her voice smooth, rehearsed. Her eyes shifted from Tara to Maya, lingering on Maya with a brief flicker of something. Curiosity? Suspicion? Maya couldn't tell. "How may I assist you today?" Maya returned the smile, albeit with more warmth than she received. "We have a reservation under Harper, Maya Harper." The receptionist's smile wavered for a split second, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. She tapped on the keyboard, her brows knitting together ever so slightly. "Just a moment, please." Her voice carried an unfamiliar edge now, subtle but unmistakable. Maya's chest tightened. She knew this routine all too well. Tara, standing beside her, shifted on her feet, picking up on the shift in tone as well. The receptionist's fingers paused mid-type. I don't seem to have a reservation for Harper." Her eyes flicked up nervously. "Let me check with the manager. One moment." Without waiting for a response, she picked up the phone and whispered something hurriedly into the receiver. Maya's heart sank, not from the inconvenience, but from the heavy sense of déjà vu. There was no reason for her to doubt Tara's organization. There was something more deliberate going on here. She felt it in her bones. Moments later, a man in his mid-40s with salt and pepper hair and a sharp, perfectly tailored suit approached the desk. His demeanor was polished, his expression one of careful neutrality, but the condescension in his eyes was clear. "Good afternoon," he began with a curt nod. "I'm Dylan Walters, the manager here at Crestmore. I'm afraid there's been a bit of a mix-up regarding your reservation, Ms. Harper." Maya's smile faltered. "A mix-up? My assistant confirmed the reservation weeks ago." Dylan smiled apologetically, the kind of smile that hid something far uglier beneath. "Yes, well, unfortunately, we cater to a particular clientele here, and there seems to have been a misunderstanding about availability." His words were slick, as though he had practiced this exact line 100 times before. There it was. The veil was lifted, and the reason behind the so-called mix-up became painfully clear. Beside her, Tara sucked in a sharp breath. "Excuse me?" Maya raised a hand, silencing Tara before she could say more. She had dealt with people like Dylan her whole life, from the boardrooms to the private clubs. "I see." she said coolly, her voice steady, but her eyes locked on his, daring him to say what he really meant. Dylan shifted, clearly uncomfortable under her gaze, but maintained his professional facade. "We maintain a certain standard for our guests, Ms. Harper. I'm afraid we won't be able to accommodate you." A heavy silence hung in the air. Maya could feel the weight of eyes on her from other guests, staff. Everyone seemed to sense the tension, even if they didn't know its exact cause. Maya smiled, but this time there was no warmth. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Walters," she said, turning on her heel, her head held high. Tara followed, her face red with anger, but Maya remained calm, her hands steady even as her chest burned with the familiar sting of rejection. Tara sat beside Maya, fuming. "Maya, this is ridiculous. We need to do something. We can't let them get away with that. This is blatant discrimination. We should sue, go to the press, or something." Maya remained silent, her eyes fixed on the passing city streets as they blurred into one long, indistinguishable scene outside the car window. She clenched her hands tightly in her lap, her knuckles turning white. It wasn't that she didn't feel the sting of what had just happened. She felt it acutely, like a knife twisting in an old wound that had never quite healed. But she had been here before, and she knew from experience that lashing out in anger wouldn't fix the problem. "Tara, it's not that simple," Maya finally said, her voice low but steady. "This isn't the first time something like this has happened to me. It's always the same. People like that manager hide behind polite words, and even if we go after them publicly, they'll spin it. They'll say it was a misunderstanding or an isolated incident, and the world will keep turning." Tara huffed, shaking her head in disbelief. "But that's exactly why we have to fight it, Maya. You've worked too hard to be treated like this. We can't just let it slide." Maya sighed, resting her head back against the seat. "I know. But a public fight won't change their minds. It'll just make them double down on their prejudices. I've seen it happen too many times. The world is slow to change." Tara stared at her in disbelief. "So what? We just let them treat you like that? Like you don't belong?" A flash of anger flickered in Maya's chest, but it wasn't directed at Tara. "No," Maya said firmly. "I won't let them get away with it, but I won't fight them on their terms. We'll figure something out." Tara nodded, though Maya could see the frustration simmering beneath the surface. The assistant turned away, her lips pressed into a tight line as she pulled out her phone and began tapping away, likely checking emails or reconfirming their plans for the rest of the week. Maya continued to stare out the window. The rejection wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a reminder, one that hit her in a deeply personal way. Even now, with all her success, all her money, there were still places that didn't see her as someone who belonged, places where no amount of wealth could erase the color of her skin. It was like being thrown back in time to when she was a child, being stared at for having darker skin in predominantly white schools, being treated as lesser even when she was the most qualified person in the room. But that wasn't who she was anymore. Maya Harper was no longer that little girl, invisible and underestimated. She had built her empire with her own hands, rising from nothing to claim a place at the top. She wasn't going to let Dylan Walters or the Crestmore Hotel strip her of that victory. As the car pulled up to her high-rise penthouse, Maya made a silent vow to herself. This won't be the end of it. The familiar sights and sounds of her penthouse brought little comfort as Maya stepped inside. The sleek, modern design, floor-to-ceiling windows, polished marble floors, and minimalist furniture had once been a symbol of everything she had worked for. Now, it felt like a hollow echo of the life she had built, a reminder that even with all this luxury, she could still be denied the most basic respect. Tara followed behind, muttering under her breath about how she was going to blast them on social media or call a lawyer. She'd never seen Tara this angry, and it tugged at something deep inside Maya. Her assistant wasn't just upset about the slight. They had been together for years, through every tough climb up the ladder of success. Tara wasn't just an employee, she was family. "Don't do anything rash," Maya said softly, her voice more tired than she intended. "I need time to think." Tara paused, her hand still on her phone, but she gave a small nod, biting her lip as she tried to calm herself. "I just hate this. You shouldn't have to put up with it. You've earned more than that." "I know." Maya's eyes wandered to the large windows overlooking the city. It was a stunning view, one that people would pay millions for, and she had. But it couldn't shield her from the weight of what had just happened. Tara hesitated before speaking again. "What now?" Maya exhaled, walking toward the window and placing a hand on the cool glass. "I don't know yet. I just need to clear my head. Maybe a visit to my mom's place will help." Tara nodded, her expression softening. "That sounds like a good idea." Maya turned and smiled gently at her assistant. "Thanks for being so protective. I'll figure this out." "I know you will," Tara replied, her voice calmer now. "You always do." A few hours later, Maya found herself driving out of the city, heading toward the small suburban home where she had grown up. As the skyline receded in the distance, she felt the weight of her success lifted ever so slightly. Coming home always did that, reminded her of who she was before the world tried to tell her she didn't belong. Her mother, Leona Harper, was waiting at the door when Maya arrived, a warm smile on her face. Leona had always had a way of knowing when her daughter needed her without Maya having to say a word. As Maya stepped into the cozy house, the familiar smell of freshly baked cookies greeted her, bringing an unexpected wave of comfort. "Maya, honey, what's wrong?" Leona asked, her sharp eyes catching the tension in her daughter's frame. Maya sat at the kitchen table, running her fingers over the smooth, worn wood. She told her mother everything: the reservation, the rejection, the thinly veiled racism wrapped in politeness. As she spoke, her voice trembled only slightly, the bitterness seeping through despite her attempts to stay calm. Leona listened quietly, her hands resting in her lap, her face calm and thoughtful. When Maya finished, the silence in the room felt heavy, but her mother's presence soothed her more than anything else had all day. After a long pause, Leona reached across the table and took Maya's hand, squeezing it gently. "You've faced this kind of ignorance your whole life, Maya, and every time you've risen above it. Don't let them take that away from you now." Maya looked into her mother's eyes, seeing the strength that had carried her through so many tough times growing up. Leona had raised Maya on her own, working 2 jobs to keep a roof over their heads, and always reminding Maya to never let anyone tell her she wasn't good enough. Her mother had been her rock, her foundation, and even now, when Maya felt lost, Leona was still her guiding light. "I don't know how to rise above this one, Mom," Maya admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Leona smiled softly. "You always figure it out. You're smarter than all of them, stronger too. Don't fight them on their terms. Fight on your own." Maya nodded, absorbing her mother's words. Maybe she didn't need to retaliate with lawsuits or angry public statements. Maybe there was another way, a way to reclaim her power without lowering herself to their level. The warmth of Leona's kitchen was a stark contrast to the cold, sterile world Maya had just left behind at the Crestmore. The soft hum of the old refrigerator, the smell of sugar cookies fresh from the oven, and the sound of water boiling on the stove created an oasis of calm. Here, in this modest suburban home, Maya felt safe. Leona, ever the calm force in her life, handed Maya a steaming cup of tea. "You've been through worse, honey. You'll get through this too," she said, sitting down across from her daughter. Maya took a deep breath, feeling the tension in her body start to melt just a little. It's so frustrating. No matter how far I've come, it's like they still don't see me as someone who belongs. I thought I was past all this. Her mother gave her a knowing look. We both know that's not how the world works, sweetheart. Just because you've made it doesn't mean the world's ready to accept it. But that doesn't mean you let them win. Maya's eyes fell to her cup, watching the steam swirl above the tea. She had never let the world's ignorance stop her before, but something about the encounter at the Crestmore had struck deeper than usual. Maybe it was because she had thought she was finally in a place where she wouldn't have to face this kind of discrimination anymore, but here it was, rearing its ugly head once again. Leona's hand reached across the table, resting on top of Maya's. You've always fought smart, not hard. Don't let them drag you into their fight. Make them come to you. Maya nodded slowly, her mind already beginning to work. Maybe she didn't need to wage a public battle. Maybe the best way to reclaim her power was to hit them where it hurt the most. But how? As she sipped her tea, an idea began to form, slowly at first, but then with growing clarity. She could fight back without ever raising her voice. She could take what they valued most and turn it into something new, something better, something that would show them she didn't need their approval to belong. Maya glanced at her mother, a smile forming at the corner of her lips. You're right, Mom. I don't need to fight them on their terms. Leona smiled knowingly, sensing the shift in Maya's demeanor. I've always known you'd figure it out. Back in her penthouse, Maya sat at her desk, her laptop open in front of her. The city lights sparkled outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting soft shadows across the room. But Maya's focus was entirely on the screen in front of her. She had spent hours researching the Crestmore Hotel, diving deep into its financials, reading articles about its history, its clientele, and, most importantly, its current struggles. For all its grandiosity and reputation, the hotel was underperforming. Guest numbers were down, the rooms were overpriced, and maintenance costs were skyrocketing. The Crestmore was sinking slowly but surely. Maya's fingers hovered over the keyboard as she read the figures. It was worse than she had expected, but in a way, that was good news. It meant the hotel was vulnerable, ripe for a takeover. All she needed to do was find the right way in. She reached for her phone and dialed a familiar number. Tara, I need you to come over. Within an hour, Tara was sitting across from Maya, her brow furrowed as she skimmed through the financial reports. You're thinking of buying it? Maya nodded. I'm not just thinking about it, I'm doing it. Tara leaned back in her chair, eyes wide. This is bold. You really think it's the right move? I mean, they just humiliated you. Maya smiled, a slow, determined smile. That's exactly why it's the right move. They think they can tell me I don't belong. Fine. I'll own the place and I'll make it into something they'll never control again. Tara raised an eyebrow. You're sure this isn't just about revenge? Maya paused, considering her words carefully. It's not just about revenge. It's about proving that I belong anywhere I want to be. And it's about changing the way people like me are seen in places like that hotel. Tara exhaled slowly, nodding. All right, I'm with you. What's the next step? Maya leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with purpose. We start with a quiet acquisition. We'll keep my name out of it for now. I don't want them to know who's buying it until the deal is done. Maya spent the next few days coordinating with her legal team, drawing up the paperwork necessary to initiate the purchase. She moved quietly, keeping her identity hidden behind a shell company, while Tara and the lawyers worked to get the ball rolling with the current owner, Bradley Chase. Bradley had inherited the Crestmore years ago and had been running it into the ground ever since. He didn't seem to care much about the hotel's reputation or its finances. To him, it was just another property in a long list of family assets. That detachment made him an easy target for Maya's plan. As the negotiations began, Maya found herself filled with a strange mix of emotions: excitement, determination, and a deep sense of vindication. This was more than just a business deal. This was personal. But unlike the rage Tara had wanted her to unleash, Maya was approaching this with cool precision. She would take Crestmore, not out of spite, but to transform it into something bigger, something better. One night, as Maya sat in her penthouse reviewing the latest documents from her lawyers, Tara sat across from her, watching her closely. "You're really going through with this," Tara said, half in awe, half in disbelief. Maya looked up, smiling. "Of course I am. I don't know. I guess I'm still processing it. This is a huge move, Maya. It's going to change everything." "That's the point," Maya said, her voice firm. "This isn't just about me, Tara. It's about people like us, who have been told over and over that we don't belong. I'm going to change that, starting with the Crestmore." Tara leaned back, folding her arms across her chest. "I believe in you. I just hope you're ready for what's coming." Maya's eyes gleamed with determination. "I've been ready my whole life." The purchase was finalized a week later. Maya Harper was now the proud owner of the Crestmore Hotel, but the real work was just beginning. Maya stared at the signed papers, the final confirmation of her acquisition of the Crestmore Hotel. Her hands felt steady as she flipped through the documents, each page a concrete symbol of her power, her resilience. A few short weeks ago, she had been humiliated by the very people who once owned this place. Now it was hers. Maya smiled, but it wasn't one of triumph yet. There was much to be done. She couldn't afford to let her emotions interfere. If she had learned anything in her rise to the top, it was to play a long game. She glanced at Tara, who was sitting across from her in the penthouse, eyes wide with disbelief. "It's official." Maya nodded. "It's official. The Crestmore Hotel is mine." Tara blinked and then let out a low whistle. Wow, you did it." Maya leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly. "We did it, Tara, but the hardest part is still ahead of us. This hotel has been operating under an outdated exclusionary mindset for years. That won't change overnight." Tara nodded thoughtfully, her expression serious now. "So, what's the plan? Renovations? New staff? You're not seriously thinking of keeping that manager on, are you?" Maya folded her arms across her chest. "I need to observe for a little while. See who's willing to adapt to the new culture I'm planning. Dylan Walters might be resistant, but I don't want to fire him right away. If I'm going to change the hotel, I need to see who's capable of evolving." Tara raised an eyebrow. "And if he doesn't?" Maya's smile was cold. "Then I'll remove him. But I'm hoping I won't have to. He may have made a mistake, but I want to believe that people can change when given the opportunity. If not, well, I have no problem clearing house." Tara seemed to consider this, her usual confidence returning. "All right, boss, so what's the first step?" "Renovations," Maya said, her voice calm but determined. "I'm not just talking about physical changes to the hotel. I'm talking about changing the way it operates, its culture. I want the Crestmore to be known as a place where anyone, regardless of their background, can walk through those doors and feel like they belong." Tara nodded, a gleam of excitement in her eyes. "I like it. A total rebranding, top to bottom." "Exactly," Maya said, "and we'll do it quietly. No big announcements until the changes are in place. I want the hotel's transformation to speak for itself." The first few weeks after the acquisition were a whirlwind of meetings, phone calls, and planning sessions. Maya had kept her identity as the new owner a secret from most of the staff, including Dylan Walters. She wanted to observe the hotel's operations from behind the scenes, ensuring she had a clear picture of what needed to be changed before she made her move. The renovations began almost immediately, starting with the lobby. Maya wanted to modernize the space without losing the hotel's historic charm. But more important than the aesthetics was the change in the atmosphere. The old Crestmore had been a place where only a select few felt welcome, and Maya was determined to open its doors to everyone. As the work progressed, Maya began holding private meetings with her HR team. Together, they developed new hiring practices and a diversity training program for the existing staff. Maya knew that changing the physical space was only one part of the equation. To truly transform the Crestmore, she had to change the mindset of the people who worked there. Tara worked tirelessly at Maya's side, managing the logistics and keeping everything on track. "The renovations are going well," she said one morning as they sat in Maya's penthouse reviewing the latest plans. "But some of the staff are starting to notice the changes. I've overheard a few conversations. Some of them aren't happy about it." Maya frowned, leaning back in her chair. "That's expected. Some people are resistant to change, but we're not backing down." "No, we're not," Tara agreed. "But I'm just warning you. Dylan and a few others are going to push back." Maya smiled slightly. "Let them. The harder they push, the more obvious it will be that they don't belong here anymore." By the time the first phase of renovations was completed, the Crestmore Hotel had already begun to feel different. The heavy, intimidating atmosphere that once hung in the air was slowly giving way to something lighter, more inviting. But Maya knew the real battle was just beginning. She had been carefully observing the staff for weeks now, watching how they interacted with the guests, how they responded to the changes she was implementing, and Dylan Walters, the man who had once dismissed her without a second thought, was at the center of it all. Dylan was clearly uncomfortable with the changes, but he hadn't openly defied them yet. He seemed to think that if he kept his head down and did his job, the new ownership would eventually lose interest in him. But Maya was watching closely. One afternoon, Maya called a meeting with her new HR director, Lori Daniels, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who had been recommended by Tara. Lori had years of experience in corporate culture transformation, and Maya trusted her instincts. "We're ready to start the diversity training," Lori said, as they sat down in the newly renovated lounge area. "But I'm concerned about some of the senior staff, particularly Dylan." Maya nodded, her gaze steady. "I've been keeping an eye on him. He hasn't caused any real problems yet, but I can tell he's not happy." Lori sighed. "It's going to be tough. People like Dylan, they've been operating in a certain way for so long they don't see a problem with it. He probably doesn't even realize how exclusionary his behavior has been." Maya's lips tightened. "He'll realize soon enough. I'm willing to give him a chance to change, but if he can't, he'll have to go." As the changes continued, the resistance began to build. It started with small things: grumbles from senior staff about the new direction of the hotel, whispers of dissatisfaction among the more traditional employees. Maya had expected some pushback, but it was still frustrating to see how deeply ingrained the old ways were. Dylan Walters, in particular, seemed to be struggling with the new culture. He was still polite, still professional, but Maya could see resentment in his eyes whenever she interacted with him. He wasn't openly defiant, but he wasn't embracing the changes either. One afternoon, Maya overheard a conversation between Dylan and one of the older staff members, Karen Mitchell, in the hallway. They were standing near the reception desk, their voices low but tense. "I don't know what she's trying to do with this place," Karen said, shaking her head. "This isn't the Crestmore I remember." Dylan sighed. "It's out of our hands now. We just have to do our jobs and hope this doesn't ruin everything. Karen frowned. Do our jobs? You've seen the kind of people they're hiring now. It's like they're trying to turn this place into I don't even know. Maya felt a surge of anger rise within her, but she kept it in check. She had known there would be people who resisted the changes, people who clung to the old ways out of fear or ignorance. But hearing it out loud, hearing them dismiss her vision as if it was a threat, made her blood boil. Maya stepped into the hallway, her expression calm, but her eyes sharp. Dylan and Karen looked up, startled to see her standing there. Is there a problem? Maya asked, her voice steady. Dylan immediately straightened, his professional mask slipping back into place. No, Ms. Harper, no problem at all. Karen, on the other hand, looked flustered. We were just discussing the changes. I see, Maya said, her tone cold. Let me be clear, this hotel is changing, whether you like it or not. If you can't adapt to that, you're free to leave. Karen's face flushed with embarrassment, and she mumbled something under her breath before hurrying off. Dylan stood there for a moment, his jaw tight, before nodding stiffly and walking away. Maya watched him go, her heart pounding in her chest. The resistance was growing, but so was her resolve. The pressure was building, and Maya could feel the weight of it pressing down on her shoulders. Running a hotel was already a monumental task, but trying to overhaul its entire culture while dealing with internal resistance, it was exhausting. Maya spent long hours at the hotel, overseeing the renovations, meeting with staff, and ensuring that everything was progressing according to plan. But no matter how hard she worked, it felt like there was always something or someone standing in her way. Tara could see the strain wearing on her. One evening, as they sat in the penthouse reviewing the latest financial reports, Tara gave her a concerned look. You've been pushing yourself too hard, Maya. I know this is important to you, but you can't burn yourself out. Maya rubbed her temples, feeling the tension throbbing in her head. I'm fine, I didn't realize how hard this would be. Changing a culture is more difficult than I expected. Tara nodded sympathetically. People don't like change, especially not people like Dylan who have been operating in the same way for years. But you're making progress, Maya. The renovations are almost done, and the new staff you've hired, they're amazing. This place is going to be incredible when you're finished. Maya smiled weakly. I hope so. I can't shake the feeling that I'm constantly fighting uphill. Tara placed a hand on Maya's arm, her voice gentle. You've fought harder battles than this, Maya. Don't let a few setbacks discourage you. You're stronger than they are. Maya nodded, grateful for Tara's support. But as she looked out at the city skyline, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle had only just begun. The time had come. After weeks of working behind the scenes, Maya knew she couldn't stay in the shadows any longer. The renovations were nearly complete. The staff had undergone the first round of diversity training, and the new culture was slowly taking root. Now, it was time to reveal herself as the true owner of the Crestmore Hotel. Maya called a meeting with the entire staff, gathering them in the newly renovated ballroom. The room was elegant and modern, a perfect blend of the hotel's historic charm and the fresh new vision Maya had created. The staff stood in small groups, murmuring among themselves, clearly curious about the purpose of the meeting. At the front of the room, Dylan Walters stood with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. He still didn't know that Maya was the new owner, but he would soon. Maya stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. She had given speeches before, she had spoken in front of thousands of people, but this was different. This was personal. Good afternoon, everyone, Maya began, her voice calm and clear. Thank you for coming. The room fell silent as everyone turned to face her. Maya could feel the weight of their attention, their curiosity, their skepticism. She took a deep breath and continued, "For those of you who don't know me, my name is Maya Harper. I am the new owner of the Crestmore Hotel." A ripple of shock went through the room. Maya watched as the staff exchanged surprised glances, and her eyes landed on Dylan. His face had gone pale, his expression one of disbelief. "I know many of you have been wondering about the changes happening here, the renovations, the new policies, the new staff. Let me be clear, those changes are just the beginning. The Crestmore Hotel is no longer a place of exclusion. It is a place where everyone, regardless of their background, is welcome. That's the future I'm building here, and I expect every one of you to be a part of it." Dylan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Maya held his gaze for a moment before turning back to the rest of the staff. "If you cannot adapt to this new culture, if you cannot support this vision of inclusivity and respect, then you don't belong here. But if you are willing to embrace this change, then I welcome you to be a part of something incredible." There was a long silence, the tension in the room thick enough to cut with a knife, but Maya stood firm, her shoulders back, her chin held high. She had spoken her truth, and now it was up to them to decide. The atmosphere in the ballroom remained tense after Maya's revelation. Staff members whispered to each other, their faces a mixture of shock and confusion. Maya could feel the weight of her announcement hanging in the air, but she stood tall, maintaining her composure. This was her moment, and she wouldn't allow doubt to cloud her resolve. Dylan Walters stood frozen at the back of the room, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. His face had turned pale, and the shock in his eyes betrayed the calm front he was trying to maintain. He hadn't expected this, and it was clear that the realization of Maya's ownership was rattling him. Maya's eyes locked onto Dylan's. He quickly broke eye contact and shifted his stance, his expression hardening. The room was abuzz with whispers, but Maya wasn't finished yet. "I understand that change is difficult," Maya continued, her voice carrying through the room. "But this hotel, this business, needs to move forward. The old ways of doing things are over. If we're going to succeed, we need to be more inclusive, more welcoming, and more forward-thinking. That means every one of you has a choice to make. You can either be part of the future of the Crestmore Hotel, or you can step aside." There was a brief pause as her words sank in. The staff shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. Maya could feel the unease radiating from Dylan, who remained silent in the back of the room. "Thank you," Maya said, ending the meeting. She turned and walked out of the ballroom, her footsteps echoing in the newly renovated space. As soon as she stepped into the hallway, Tara caught up to her, her expression a mix of concern and admiration. "You handled that perfectly, but I'm guessing Dylan won't let this go without a fight." Maya nodded. Her mind was already racing ahead. "I know, but I need to deal with him one-on-one." Tara frowned. "You're really going to give him a chance after everything he's done?" Maya paused, considering Tara's question. She wasn't naive. She knew that Dylan was one of the most resistant people in the hotel. He embodied everything she was trying to change. But deep down, Maya believed that people could change, if they were willing. "I'll give him a chance," Maya said softly. "But if he doesn't take it, then I'll remove him. No hesitation." Tara nodded, her concern eased. "I'll be in your corner no matter what." Maya gave her a grateful smile. "Thanks, Tara. Now I think it's time I talk to Dylan." Maya made her way to Dylan's office, her steps steady and sure. She wasn't afraid of confrontation, but this conversation wasn't about winning. It was about understanding whether Dylan could adapt or if he would be left behind. When she reached his office, the door was slightly ajar. She knocked gently before pushing it open. Dylan was standing by the window, staring out at the bustling city below. He didn't turn to face her, but the tension in his shoulders told Maya he knew she was there. "Mr. Walters," Maya said calmly, stepping inside and closing the door behind her. "We need to talk." Dylan didn't respond immediately. His back remained turned to her, his hands clenched at his sides. Finally, after a long pause, he spoke. "So, you're the new owner, the woman I turned away." "Yes," Maya replied simply. "I'm the woman you dismissed, and now I'm the one in charge." Dylan finally turned around, his expression a mixture of bitterness and disbelief. "I didn't know who you were. If I had—" "It wouldn't have mattered," Maya interrupted, her voice sharp but not unkind. "The issue isn't that you didn't know who I was. The issue is that you judged me based on nothing more than appearances. And that's the culture you've cultivated here, consciously or not. It's why I'm making these changes." Dylan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Maya stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "I'm not here to humiliate you, Dylan. I'm here to offer you a choice." He looked at her warily, clearly unsure of where this conversation was going. Maya continued, her voice firm. "I've seen how you've resisted the changes I'm making. I know you don't agree with the new direction of the hotel, but let me make one thing clear. This hotel will succeed because of these changes, not in spite of them. So, you have a decision to make. You can either adapt and be part of something better, or you can leave. But if you stay, you'll need to fully commit to this new vision." Dylan's eyes narrowed slightly. "You think it's that easy? That I can just flip a switch and become someone else?" "No," Maya said quietly. "I don't think it's easy at all, but I think it's possible, if you want it to be. You've been running this hotel for years. You know how things used to be, but that doesn't mean they have to stay that way. The question is, are you willing to learn? Are you willing to change?" Dylan was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the floor. Maya could see the conflict playing out in his mind. He was a man of pride, but pride wasn't going to help him now. "I've spent my whole career thinking I was doing the right thing," Dylan said finally, his voice quieter now. "I thought I was upholding the hotel's reputation, its traditions, but I didn't realize how much harm those traditions were causing." Maya nodded, recognizing the weight of what he was admitting. "You weren't the only one. The entire industry has been built on exclusion, whether people realize it or not. But we can do better. I'm offering you a chance to be part of that change. It's up to you whether or not you take it." Dylan looked up at her, his expression softer now, though still tinged with uncertainty. "And if I can't?" "Then you'll have to step aside," Maya said plainly. "But I'd prefer it if you stayed. I think you're capable of more than you realize." For the first time, Dylan seemed to truly consider her words. He rubbed a hand over his face, the weight of years of resistance and outdated thinking settling on his shoulders. "I don't know if I can change that easily." "I'm not asking you to change overnight," Maya replied, "but you need to start, and I'm willing to help, if you're willing to try." Dylan took a deep breath, his shoulders sagging slightly. "All right," he said finally, "I'll try." Maya gave him a small, encouraging smile. "That's all I'm asking." She turned to leave, but before she reached the door, she paused and looked back at him. "One more thing, Dylan. Don't think of this as a punishment. Think of it as a chance to do something meaningful." He didn't respond, but the thoughtful look on his face told her that he understood. Maya left his office, feeling a sense of relief. She wasn't sure if Dylan would truly change, but at least he was willing to try, and that was more than she had hoped for. Over the next few weeks, the Crestmore Hotel began to truly transform. The renovations were nearing completion, and the changes in the staff culture were starting to take hold. Maya had worked tirelessly with her HR director, Lori Daniels, to ensure that the new hiring practices reflected the values she wanted the hotel to embody: diversity, inclusivity, and excellence. The new staff members, many of whom came from diverse backgrounds, brought fresh energy to the hotel. Maya could see the positive impact they were having on the overall atmosphere. Guests were beginning to notice, too. The old rigid formality of Crestmore was giving way to a more welcoming, vibrant environment. But it wasn't just about the new hires. The existing staff, including Dylan Walters, were going through a transformation of their own. The diversity training sessions had been met with some initial resistance, particularly from the more senior employees. But as the weeks went on, Maya began to see subtle changes in their behavior. Dylan, in particular, was surprising her. He attended every training session, participated in the discussions, and made a genuine effort to engage with the new policies. It wasn't easy for him. Maya could see the struggle in his eyes, but he was trying, and that, more than anything, gave Maya hope. One afternoon, Maya found herself walking through the newly renovated lobby, admiring the changes. The lobby was now a blend of modern design and classic elegance, with bright, open spaces that invited guests to relax and enjoy the atmosphere. Gone were the stuffy, exclusive vibes that once dominated the hotel. In their place, there was a feeling of warmth and inclusivity. As she walked past the reception desk, she spotted Dylan speaking with one of the new staff members, Alicia Reynolds, a young woman who had recently been promoted to a supervisory role. Alicia had been a standout since day one, professional, efficient, and passionate about the hotel's new direction. Maya watched as Dylan spoke with Alicia, giving her instructions on how to handle a particularly challenging guest. His tone was calm and respectful, and Alicia listened intently, nodding as he explained the situation. There was no trace of the condescension that had once colored his interactions with the staff. Maya smiled at herself. Dylan was learning. As she continued her walk through the hotel, Maya reflected on how far they had come. The road had been difficult, and there were still challenges ahead. But changes were happening. Slowly, but surely, the Crestmore Hotel was becoming the place she had always envisioned, a place where everyone was welcome, where no one would ever be turned away because of who they were. Later that evening, Maya met with Tara in the penthouse to review the final preparations for the hotel's grand reopening event. They had decided to hold the event in 2 weeks, giving them just enough time to put the finishing touches on the renovations and finalize the guest list. "You've done it, Maya," Tara said as they sat in the living room, sipping glasses of wine. "The hotel feels completely different now." Maya nodded, though she knew the work was far from over. "It's a start, but there's still more to do. We need to make sure the changes stick." "They will," Tara said confidently. "You've set the foundation. The rest will follow." Maya smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment washed over her. For the first time since she had taken over Crestmore, she allowed herself to relax, just for a moment. "You're right," she said softly. "We're on the right path." The grand reopening of the Crestmore Hotel was just days away, and the entire building was buzzing with excitement. The final phase of renovations had been completed, and the hotel was gleaming with new life. Invitations had been sent out to a diverse group of guests, from community leaders to influencers, all of whom represented the vision Maya had for the hotel's future. Maya stood in the center of the ballroom, watching as the staff made the final preparations for the event. It was hard to believe how much had changed in such a short time. The Crestmore Hotel, once a symbol of exclusion and elitism, was now a place of warmth, inclusivity, and excellence. And Maya was at the heart of it all. Tara approached her, a clipboard in hand. "Everything's on track for the event. Guests are RSVPing left and right, and the press is going to be all over this." Maya nodded. Her mind was already running through logistics. "Good. I want this to be perfect." Not just for the guests, but for the staff too. They need to see that this hotel can thrive under the new direction. They will, Tara said with a smile. You've worked too hard for this not to succeed. Maya's eyes scanned the room, taking in the details. The decorations, the lighting, the carefully arranged seating. It was all coming together. But more than physical changes, it was the energy of the place that made her proud. The staff moved with purpose and confidence, and the guests who had already arrived were mingling, laughing, enjoying the atmosphere. As the event began, Maya made her way to the front of the room, ready to give her speech. She glanced at the staff, at Tara, and at Dylan, who stood off to the side, watching her with a mixture of respect and admiration. He had changed, just as she had hoped. But it wasn't just about him. It was about everyone who had ever been told they didn't belong. Maya took a deep breath and stepped up to the podium, her heart swelling with pride. Welcome, everyone, she began, her voice steady and strong. Tonight we celebrate the reopening of the Crestmore Hotel. But more than that, we celebrate the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter built on inclusivity, respect, and excellence. This hotel is no longer just a place for the elite. It's a place for everyone. The room erupted in applause, and Maya smiled, feeling the warmth of their support washed over her. We've worked hard to get here, she continued, her eyes scanning the room. But the work isn't over. We will continue to grow, to learn, and to change, because that's what it means to be truly great. And I'm proud to say that the Crestmore Hotel is on its way to greatness. As she stepped down from the podium, the applause thundered through the ballroom. Maya felt a deep sense of fulfillment settling in her chest. She had reclaimed not just a hotel, but a piece of herself, and, in doing so, she had created a place where others could find belonging as well. And this was only the beginning. The days leading up to the grand reopening of the Crestmore Hotel were filled with excitement and last-minute preparations. Everything was falling into place. The renovations, the new staff culture, and the guest list, which now included a diverse array of community leaders, influencers, and important figures in the hospitality industry. Despite the anticipation, Maya Harper couldn't shake the feeling that something was looming. She had spent months reshaping the hotel, turning it from an outdated, exclusionary institution into a symbol of inclusivity and excellence. But there was one lingering question that nagged at her. Had the staff really embraced the change? Maya had seen glimpses of hope. Dylan Walters, the former manager who had once turned her away, was making strides in his personal growth. The diversity training programs were in full swing, and new hires were bringing fresh energy to the hotel. But Maya knew that not everyone was thrilled about the changes. Old habits and mindsets were hard to break, and there were still murmurs of resistance from some of the longtime staff. On the morning of the reopening event, Maya walked the halls of the hotel, taking in the final touches. Everything looked perfect. Polished marble floors, glittering chandeliers, and newly renovated suites that exuded both luxury and warmth. But the true test wasn't the physical transformation. It was whether the spirit of the hotel had changed. Maya found Dylan in the lobby, instructing the staff on how to greet the incoming guests. His tone was professional, but there was a noticeable shift in his demeanor. He wasn't just following orders anymore, he was leading with purpose. Maya approached him quietly. Dylan. He turned, surprised but calm. Ms. Harper. He paused, then corrected himself with a slight smile. Maya. She smiled back. How are things going? Everything's running smoothly so far, Dylan said, glancing around the lobby. The staff's ready and the first guests will be arriving soon. Maya studied him carefully. There was something different about him, something genuine. You've come a long way, Dylan. I can see the change. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. It wasn't easy, but I had to face the fact that I'd been living in the past. This hotel needed the change. I needed the change. Maya felt a sense of satisfaction settle over her. She had given him the chance, and he had taken it, but she wasn't about to let her guard down completely. Just remember, this is only the beginning. Change isn't a one-time event. It's ongoing. Dylan met her gaze, a flicker of determination in his eyes. I understand that now. I'm committed. Maya nodded, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. Good. Let's make tonight unforgettable. As the sun began to set, the Crestmore Hotel came alive with activity. The grand reopening event drew in a large crowd, and the ballroom was filled with laughter, conversation, and the clinking of champagne glasses. The atmosphere was electric, the culmination of months of hard work. Maya moved through the crowd, greeting guests and keeping an eye on the flow of the event. Tara, always by her side, was managing logistics with her usual efficiency. "The turnout is even better than we expected," Tara whispered as they paused near the entrance. "This place is buzzing." Maya smiled, her eyes scanning the room. She could see the diverse array of guests, people from all walks of life, from local community leaders to social media influencers. It was exactly what she had envisioned, a hotel that welcomed everyone, where no one would feel out of place. But as Maya observed the scene, she noticed Karen Mitchell, one of the longtime staff members who had resisted the changes. Karen was standing near the bar watching the event unfold with a frown. Maya could tell she was uncomfortable, still holding on to the old ways of the hotel. She hadn't caused any problems, but her body language spoke volumes. Maya approached Karen, her expression kind but firm. "Karen, how are you finding the event?" Karen straightened, her frown deepening. "It's different." Maya nodded. "It is. That's the point." There was a long pause as Karen glanced around the room, taking in the unfamiliar faces, the energy that felt so foreign to her. "I just don't know if this place is the same anymore." "It's not," Maya said simply, "and that's a good thing. The Crestmore had to change. We're creating something better here, something for everyone. But you have to decide if you're ready to be a part of it." Karen's lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't argue. After a moment, she nodded. "I'll try." Maya smiled softly. "That's all I'm asking." As Karen walked away, Maya felt a sense of closure. Not everyone would embrace the change wholeheartedly, but at least they were beginning to understand that the hotel's new direction was non-negotiable. Later that evening, as the event continued to flourish, Maya found herself standing by the large windows in the ballroom, gazing out at the city skyline. The lights of the city twinkled below, a reminder of the world she had built for herself, a world of success but also of challenges. Her mother, Leona Harper, approached from behind, her face glowing with pride. "Look at what you've done, Maya. It's beautiful." Maya turned, smiling warmly. "It's been a long journey, but it was worth it." Leona stood beside her, resting a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. "You've taken something that was broken and made it whole again, and not just for yourself, for everyone who ever felt like they didn't belong." Maya nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I wanted to create a place where no one would feel the way I did that day. A place where everyone's welcome." "You've done that," Leona said softly, "and you've shown the world what it means to rise above. You didn't let their ignorance define you." Maya glanced around the ballroom, taking in the laughter, the joy, the sense of community that filled the space. This was what she had fought for. This was what Crestmore had become, a place of transformation, healing, and belonging. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom," Maya said, her voice thick with emotion. "You were always my anchor." Leona smiled, her eyes glistening with pride. I just gave you the foundation. You built the rest. Maya leaned into her mother's embrace, feeling the warmth of her support. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of peace settling over her. The hard work was paying off, and the future was bright. As the event continued, Maya noticed Dylan standing off to the side, watching the festivities with a thoughtful expression. She approached him, curious about what was going through his mind. "Dylan," she said softly, drawing his attention. "Enjoying the evening?" He nodded, though his expression was still somewhat reserved. "It's a lot to take in, but I think I understand now. This hotel, it needed to change, and I needed to change with it." Maya studied him for a moment, sensing the weight of his words. "You've made real progress, Dylan. I've seen the effort you've put in." Dylan sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "It hasn't been easy. I fought it at first, tried to hold on to what I thought the hotel should be. But I was wrong. The Crestmore wasn't a place for everyone. It was exclusive in all the wrong ways." Maya nodded, understanding his struggle. "It's hard to let go of what you've known for so long, but you've done it. You've adapted." Dylan glanced at her, a hint of gratitude in his eyes. "I wouldn't have been able to if you hadn't given me the chance. Most people would have fired me the moment they took over." Maya smiled gently. "I believe in second chances. But you earned it. You put in the work." There was a brief silence as they both reflected on how far they had come. Dylan, once the symbol of the hotel's outdated elitism, had transformed into someone who was willing to learn, to grow. "I'm glad I stayed," Dylan said quietly. "I'm glad I got to be a part of this." Maya smiled. "So am I." The grand reopening event was winding down, but the energy in the hotel was still vibrant. Guests continued to mingle, enjoying the luxury of the newly renovated Crestmore. Maya, however, had slipped away from the crowd and found a quiet corner where she could reflect on everything that had happened. Tara joined her, her expression tired but content. "You did it, Maya. The hotel's thriving, the guests love it, and the staff is adapting. This is everything you dreamed of." Maya nodded, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. "It is, but it's not just about me. This hotel, it's for everyone who ever felt like they didn't belong. It's for the people who need to see that they can claim their space too." Tara smiled, her admiration clear. "You've built something lasting. This isn't just a hotel anymore. It's a legacy." Maya leaned back, closing her eyes for a moment. The word legacy resonated with her. This was more than a business. This was about creating something that would outlast her, something that would stand as a testament to resilience and empowerment. "I want the Crestmore to be a place where people can see themselves reflected," Maya said softly. "A place where they know they're welcome." Tara nodded. "And it will be. You've made sure of that." Maya opened her eyes, gazing out at the ballroom where the last of the guests were mingling. This was just the beginning. The real work was maintaining what she had built, ensuring that the changes she had implemented continued to thrive long after the grand reopening. But for now, Maya allowed herself a moment of pride. She had taken something broken and made it whole again, and in doing so, she had reclaimed not just the hotel, but her own sense of belonging. 2 weeks after the grand reopening, the Crestmore Hotel was running smoothly, and the changes were becoming more integrated into the hotel's daily operations. But Maya knew that true transformation took time, and there would still be tests ahead. Dylan had been doing well, but Maya sensed that he was about to face his greatest challenge yet. An influential guest, a longtime patron of the hotel who represented the old guard, had booked a stay at Crestmore. This guest, Elliot Reynolds, was known for his elitist views and his disdain for anything new. When Maya learned that Dylan would be overseeing Elliot's stay, she watched closely. This would be the moment of truth for Dylan. Would he revert to his old ways to appease a difficult guest, or would he stay true to the new vision of the hotel? On the first day of Elliot's stay, Maya observed from a distance as Dylan greeted the guest with polite professionalism. Elliot, however, made no effort to hide his displeasure. He grumbled about the renovations, complained about the new policies, and made snide remarks about the diversity of the staff. Maya's heart tightened as she watched Dylan navigate the situation. His face remained neutral, his tone calm, but she could see the tension in his posture. This was the kind of guest who would have been catered to in the old Crestmore, the kind who expected the world to bend to his will. Later that afternoon, as Elliot made yet another complaint, Maya watched Dylan's response carefully. He could have reverted to the old ways, placating Elliot, making excuses and ignoring the new policies. But instead, Dylan held firm. "I'm sorry you're not enjoying your stay, Mr. Reynolds," Dylan said, his voice steady. "But the Crestmore has undergone changes that reflect our new values. We welcome all guests, and we're proud of the diversity and inclusivity we've implemented here." Elliot bristled, but Dylan didn't waver. "If there's anything I can do to make your stay more comfortable, within the guidelines of our new policies, I'd be happy to assist." Maya felt a surge of pride as she watched Dylan stand on his ground. He had come a long way. After Elliot stormed off, clearly dissatisfied, Dylan exhaled. The tension in his body finally eased. Maya approached him. Her smile was warm. "You handled that well," she said. Dylan gave a small, tired smile. "It wasn't easy. The old me would have bent over backwards to keep him happy. But that's not who I am anymore." Maya nodded, her respect for Dylan growing even more. "You've grown, Dylan, and the hotel is better for it." With the Crestmore Hotel thriving under its new direction, Maya's mind began to turn toward the future. She had spent months transforming the hotel, and while there was still work to be done, she felt confident in the foundation she had laid. But Maya wasn't someone who rested on her laurels. As the hotel continued to operate smoothly, she began to think about what her next move would be. The success of Crestmore had shown her that real change was possible, not just in business, but in society as a whole. Maya sat in her penthouse one evening, sipping a glass of wine as she looked out at the city below. Tara was sitting across from her, scrolling through her phone. "So," Tara said, glancing up, "what's next for Maya Harper?" Maya smiled, swirling the wine in her glass. "I've been thinking about that." Tara raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" Maya leaned back, her eyes thoughtful. "The Crestmore was just the beginning. I want to take what I've done here and expand it. There are so many industries, so many spaces that need to be reimagined. I want to keep pushing for change." Tara nodded, a smile spreading across her face. "I should have known you wouldn't stop here." Maya laughed softly. "I never stop. But this time, I want to focus on more than just business. I want to start a foundation, something that helps empower people who've been excluded from spaces like the Crestmore. I want to create opportunities for others to reclaim their power, just like I did." Tara's eyes lit up. "That's brilliant, Maya. A foundation could have a huge impact." Maya nodded, feeling the excitement build. "I've spent my whole career building businesses, but now it's time to give back. It's time to use what I've learned to help others." Tara raised her glass, her eyes shining with admiration. "To the future, and to the incredible things you're going to do." Maya clinked her glass with Tara's, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The Crestmore Hotel had been her first step in reclaiming her power. Now it was time to help others do the same. A few days after the grand reopening, Maya invited her mother, Leona Harper, to the hotel for a private tour. Leona had always been Maya's guiding force, and Maya wanted her to see the transformation firsthand. As they walked through the lobby, Maya pointed out the changes to the open, inviting design, the new staff members, and the way the hotel felt different in every way. Leona listened quietly, her eyes taking in every detail with a sense of pride. "This place is beautiful, Maya," Leona said as they entered one of the newly renovated suites. "You've done something incredible here." Maya smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. You were the one who taught me to keep fighting, no matter what." Leona turned to face her daughter, her expression serious but full of love. "You were always strong, Maya. Stronger than I ever was. I knew you would rise above whatever the world threw at you." Maya felt a lump form in her throat as she looked at her mother. "I wouldn't be here without your strength. You showed me what it means to stand tall even when everything feels like it's against you." Leona's eyes softened, and she reached out to take Maya's hand. "I'm proud of you, Maya. Not just for what you've built, but for the way you've carried yourself. You've shown the world that real power doesn't come from money or status, it comes from within." Maya squeezed her mother's hand, feeling the warmth of her love and support. "I'm going to keep pushing, Mom. I'm going to keep fighting for change." Leona smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "And I'll be right here, cheering you on." They stood in the quiet suite for a long moment, taking in the significance of the journey they had both been on. Maya had reclaimed her power, her dignity, and her place in the world, and she had done it on her own terms. The final celebration for the grand reopening of the Crestmore Hotel was an intimate affair. Maya had invited a small group of close friends, family, and trusted colleagues to join her for a private dinner in one of the hotel's most exclusive dining rooms. The mood was light, and laughter filled the room as everyone toasted to the hotel's success. Maya looked around the table, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the people who had supported her along the way. Tara sat to her right, chatting animatedly with one of the new managers, while Dylan sat to her left, looking more relaxed than Maya had ever seen him. Even Karen Mitchell, who had once been resistant to the changes, was smiling and enjoying the evening. As the dinner wound down, Maya stood up to give a final toast. She held her glass high, her voice steady and full of emotion. "To everyone in this room," she began, "thank you. This journey has been challenging, but it's also been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. The Crestmore Hotel is no longer just a place of luxury, it's a place of belonging, and that's because of all of you." The room erupted in applause, and Maya smiled, feeling the warmth of their support wash over her. This was what she had fought for, not just success, but a community, a legacy. "To the future," Maya said, her voice strong. "May we continue to grow, to learn, and to create spaces where everyone belongs." The next morning, Maya woke up early and made her way to the hotel's rooftop terrace. The city was just beginning to wake up, and the soft light of dawn bathed the skyline in a warm glow. Maya stood at the edge of the terrace, looking out at the city she had called home for so many years. The Crestmore Hotel stood tall beneath her, a symbol of everything she had accomplished and everything she still planned to do. Tara joined her a few minutes later with a cup of coffee in hand. "Couldn't sleep?" Maya smiled, shaking her head. "Too much on my mind." Tara leaned against the railing, her eyes scanning the horizon. "Thinking about what's next?" Maya nodded. "I've accomplished what I set out to do here. The hotel is thriving, the staff is adapting, and the guests love the new direction. But I'm not done yet." Tara chuckled. "You never are." Maya turned to her, her expression thoughtful. "I want to take this further. I want to expand, create more spaces like this, places where people can feel like they belong, no matter where they come from." Tara nodded, her admiration clear. "You're going to change the world, Maya." Maya smiled, her heart full of hope and determination. "That's the plan." As they stood on the terrace watching the sun rise over the city, Maya felt a deep sense of peace settle over her. This was only the beginning. There were more challenges ahead, more battles to fight, but she was ready. She had reclaimed the Crestmore Hotel, and in doing so, she had reclaimed her own power. Now, it was time to help others do the same. With Tara by her side and a clear vision of the future, Maya knew that anything was possible. The world was hers to shape, and she was just getting started. If you enjoyed Maya's journey and want more stories like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and be part of the community. Stay tuned for more inspiring tales of resilience, empowerment, and transformation.